Hi, everyone. Seth Scrimo here with the Best of Wooster podcast. And today we are at OHuddle with Kelly and Sarah. How you ladies doing today?
Be here. Doing good.
Good. Awesome. Definitely a cooler Friday today in August. Getting ready for that fall weather. So let's get into the questions here. So for those of you who do not know exactly what OHuddle is, how did they get started?
Yeah, so OHuddle is a one-to-one mentor organization in our public school setting during the school day. And I was previously the school psychologist over at Worcester City Schools. And really, OHuddle was born out of data and was born out of heartache. And just really knowing that we need a social work undercarriage for students to help connect them to resources and help them to be their best selves. It started about 11 years ago now and started with just a volunteer group of teachers and youth pastors and people from the community that came and volunteered. And we now are over 700 kids served in 24 buildings here in Wayne County.
And Kelly, how did you start with?
I started as one of those volunteer people probably about 8 years ago. And then I was at a field trip and Sarah asked if I knew anyone that needed or wanted to work for OHuddle and said no, I don't know anybody, and started to think about it, and God kind of laid it on my heart that it was something that I would like to try and invest more in. And 7 years later, I'm at my fourth or fifth site. So I'm going back to work this school year at Waynedale Middle School. So I'll be working with the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders out there.
Awesome. Now, Sarah, you mentioned the video that inspired you about cultivating all this stuff. So what was it about that moment that just like clicked?
I'm somebody who really loves spreadsheets. I really love data, and I really love the story that the data tells you. But I also really love kids and the stories that they come forward with. And as a school psychologist, I'm supposed to do both, right? So I'm supposed to get to know the kid and build a relationship. And also I'm supposed to look at things from a 20,000 foot lens. And so I would say for me, it was this understanding of in our school district, we were over half of the kids lived below the poverty line. And so we had all of those challenges around poverty. We also had a lot of trauma in our school district. And I had this seat in my office where kids would tell me horrible stories when I was assessing them and going through, a breakdown of things that would help them. And it just was a lot of broken heart coupled with the information that was telling us that we had this trend of students who didn't have an invested adult at home. Now, research shows that mentorship is one of the very best research-based interventions that you can, that mentorship is one of the best research-based interventions that you can use to combat what we call adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And so when a kid has experienced a trauma, if we are pairing them on a regular basis with mentorship, we can actually reduce some of the symptomology of trauma. And so I had kids for whom I knew that that was their true story. I had data that told us this was what to do. And that really is the confluence of how OHuddle was started out.
And Sarah, so you have a background as a psychologist. How did that journey help you lead into launching OHuddle?
It for sure was centered around, what are trends? What are we seeing as the next thing that we know that we need to do? And, when you have teachers and you're working in an educational field, I worked in clinical psychology prior to working in school psychology, and teachers and nurses are just the best of humanity. And they are in it for the right reasons most often, and they are there working hard. And our teachers, our educators would come into my office and they would lay their head down on my desk and they would sob and they would say, what I'm doing, it feels like it's not making a difference because we don't have clothing, we don't have food, we don't have an adult at home who's able to help secure and sign up and get them into these systems that we know exist. And so, as a psychologist, I really felt informed by being able to mobilize some of the resources that we have at a community level, and also being able to enact some of the systems that we have at a school-based level to realize mentorship as a nonprofit here in the community.
And Kelly, you started as a volunteer, and now here you are. What made you decide to jump?
Another similar story. I don't have the background in the schools other than being a volunteer and a mom, but I have 5 kids of my own, so super active, and was working at the school one day when we got some pretty awful news, and one of the students had passed away, and it just broke my heart that if that young student had someone in his life to talk to, would that have been the outcome? So it's kind of laid on my heart that there's a lot of kids out there that need that one-on-one, and so I reached out to OHuddle, and Sarah and I had a great conversation about how I could get involved in that next school year. I said, put me where you need me. And that started me as a volunteer at Edgewood. And that that I was paired with that year is now going into a senior year. Just kind of have followed him along into different schools, different things that have gone up and down. And that's what OHuddle's all about.
Definitely. Especially with me, I got two little kids, and just so far, just seeing how they grow, you want to pour so much into them. And it's good to see the fruits start to come to bear.
So what's neat for Kelly and I as well is our own personal children have mentors as well. So I really felt like it was important for my son Gabriel and my daughter Ella to have mentorship, because even though we're really, as parents, earnestly trying to invest in them and being really intentional about where do we take them to have opportunities and to open up their eyes, when you have that person who's not a family person who's coming in and has a very different relationship than you yourself have with your kids, it can be something that really adds a sense of dimensionality to their support and invests in them in a different way. So while we did start out of the need and poverty and trauma, we now, having over 700 kids served, are serving all types of kids who are from two-parent families and kids who have, are on the gifted spectrum, or kids who are in special education, kids who have single grandma who's raising them. There really are all walks of life that mentorship is impactful for.
Originally before OHuddle came to be, you were told that mentorship wasn't supported or even launchable. How'd you push through that doubt and resistance?
I think no one goes into nonprofit unless they are an optimist. I don't know any founders of nonprofits who are not at their very heart very hopeful and sometimes a little naive about what's possible. And I would say probably my naivete paired with my stamina probably pushed through that, because they weren't wrong. The individuals who said there's no money in mentorship, there's not a pot of money that this can be supported by. We initially were supported by a grant at the state level. But what I didn't know is that when a governor leaves office, all of their grants leave for long periods of time, and if ever again are returned. And so we got better at fundraising and being able to be really creative with how we use our dollars. We have a very lean budget, and we get almost everything in kind. The table that we're sitting at was a tree that was my neighbor's that fell down that we turned into a table. And so how can we be creative to make those dollars stretch and to make sure that we can make the biggest impact possible is something that we've been passionate about since day one.
For sure. Now, Kelly, looking back, what's been one of the toughest moments since starting, and how'd you get through it?
I think there's a lot of tough moments. I don't even know if I could narrow it down to one, but one season of life was COVID, when literally we heard on a Friday we were going home and not coming back. We had an emergency staff meeting over Zoom, and what are we going to do to help these kids, because they're all going home and nobody knows anything. Staff didn't know anything. So making sure kids had food, making sure kids had computers to do schoolwork, how to get online, how to get to the assignments. So again, I've likened it to a hub and a wheel. Like OHuddle just kind of helps connect the pieces. The stuff is already there. It's just helping the kids and even the parents connect to the staff, connect to the school, connect to the community. But yeah, that was a pretty trying time. I remember doing home visits and checking up on kids in their front yards and sitting in lawn chairs, socially distanced, eating popsicles, just checking in and seeing how things are going. But yeah, I think our staff relied on each other a lot during that and just did whatever we needed to do to help where we could.
Sure. I think COVID was definitely a strange time in a lot of people's lives.
Kelly so fully embodies, the spirit of OHuddle through who she is and how she finds a way. One of the things I felt so proud about in that season was we were one of the few nonprofits that did not shutter. We had no time that we took off. We continued to make sure that we were making connections and that we were making those ends fit for students. It was you who went to a household of 9 children, and it was a 2-bedroom walk-up apartment that the kids were all of school age, and we were serving, I think, all of the family, and brought food over to the household and said, how have things been going? And the kids were not allowed out of the house because mom, had a disability and did not want them out in the neighborhood. It felt like an unsafe neighborhood. And so one of the things that I remember Kelly doing is to navigate them through what are the safe spaces that you can go to in a socially distanced way. We want you to leave the walls of your house during the season. It's going on for a long time. And so being an ambassador of trust and relationship that helps to foster this sense of what is the next right thing to do is something that a lot of humans need. And Kelly does that for a lot of humans.
So I think definitely you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes people are afraid to ask the question. So One of the next questions here is, when was the first time you saw like real impact from the mentorship work done here? Can you share stories?
I think an early example for me was when early on we had 3 boys that we were serving that were choosing between what I called their Joker and their Batman experience because they were charismatic and they were, fun kids. They were using their charisma for malice a lot of the times, and we gave each of them a mentor. I remember one of the kids specifically I had known since kindergarten. He never smiled. This was something that I knew of him and his teachers knew of him, and it was something we all kind of hustled for, and there was never a yield. And the other 2 boys were friends with him and kind of did most of the talking. One day I'm coming up to an evaluation meeting and all the kids are going one way and I'm trying to elbow my way up to the other way. And here's this kid and he breaks into this huge wide smile in the hallway. And I turned around to see what he was looking at, and it was his mentor coming through the front door. And I think that for me was a light bulb moment because I realized that on paper, what we were doing was a good thing. I realized that, all of the details showed that this was going to be fine. But that was a moment in time that I recognized that all the good things that we had tried to do were not activating without relationship. And the true story of that for the kid was that he didn't have shoes that fit. He was clothing insecure and food insecure. And one of the relationship points for him with that mentor was that the mentor was finding solutions with OHuddle for those things. So we started with relationship. We were able to go down to basic needs, which was then able to activate so many other things for this kid. And so that was a light bulb moment for me where I was even a little bit disappointed in myself as a psychologist. I thought, well, I know about Maslow's hierarchy of need. I know that these are the stepping stones, but I had never really seen it in a moment until that point with that kid.
I have multiple stories that I could share from the various kids in the various schools, but the top ones in my head right off the top were I had a student that said he wanted to be in the Olympics and be a runner. And I said, "Are you on the track team?" He said, "Well, no." And I said, "Well, how do you know that you're a runner?" And so we used one of our exercises that we do each week, one of the developmental assets. I'm not sure which one it was, but we went back and we used the ladder and said, "How are you going to get there?" And so, "How are you going to go to college? Because you got to go to college to get noticed. And like, let's get you on the track team. Do you have shoes? Do you have an athletic, your physical taken care of, your family's filled out the paperwork." And I had the opportunity to take him to run a 5K on a weekend. And he joined the cross country team that next fall and then joined the track team. And those are just the connections that I don't even know if mom and dad knew that he wanted to run. So that's kind of great. And another story, I have a student that I've known for 2nd grade and have been able to follow him throughout the county. He's bounced around several times to different schools, but I think he's at Triway now, and he was at Orville, and he was at Wooster, and he was at a couple different elementaries. And so OHuddle services all of those buildings. So I was the one consistent thing in his life as he moved from place to place, which I think makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the golden thread through which we start to see change. I mean, that's psychological safety for kids, is you're somebody who's going to stand by me. Our track kid, is that the one who wins every year at the...
No, it's actually a different kiddo, but yeah.
We have a student who Kelly always brings to our Miles for Mentors event where we give kids a chance to walk or run a mile. For some kids, it's the first time they have experienced or participated in something physical like that. And we have one student who always comes with Kelly because he says, "I'm going to win," and he has won his cat
every year. Pictures of medal, yeah.
Single year, yeah, and we'll know, so.
It sounds like he's super consistent.
Well, and he wants to come because he has to protect
his winning streak.
So let's talk about resilience and growth mindset. What do those mean to you in real life terms with the kids and mentors that you work with?
Yeah, I think resilience is a big key around how we look to be able to foster opportunity for our students. What we know for sure is that if you're living far below the poverty line, you may have a challenge in being able to show a sense of stamina when things get tough. And so being able to look at, is resilience improving over time, is actually something that we measure as an indicator of each of our students. We have a resilience scale that's a norm scale. And we have a lot of conversations around, in this time of trial, what are your resources? What's your path forward? Kelly mentioned before the laddering method of what's the next right thing that we know to do towards the eventual outcome and goal. And so I think that those are micro conversations, and that's why mentorship works, is that it's really eating the whale is what we call it. It's small bites at a time that cannot be done in a single setting. It's something that happens over time in order to be successful. And that's how resilience and growth mindset works as well, is how do we see this as I'm on the journey of. OHuddle means Odyssey Huddle. It means that we are all on a journey and you need a huddle around you in order to be successful. We know that anybody who's ever been successful or who has done something big has had a mentor. And so we want to be able to provide that to our youth who we see as such an asset to the community.
What makes OHuddle different from other youth programs in Ohio or nationally?
I've been looking for a long time for a model that feels like it is closely matched with ours, and I've not quite found one. I've really dug a lot at the national level, at the state level. We have a lot of great mentor organizations. We're big fans of Big Brother, Big Sister programs and good friends with them. We try to learn from them, as well as the Legacy Project that's over in Stark County. I haven't quite found an organization that is very centered around how the practice of education works. What I knew for sure coming from the clinical world to coming and working in school psychology was how different those two systems are. And when you're in mental health, you have your own lexicon and way of doing things, and school has its own way of doing things. And so we've really built to accommodate ourselves around how the school system works so that we can ensure high fidelity of seeing our kids, which is why we've grown at such a alarming rate. I think it's been a really high rate that we've multiplied by over this small 10-year period to be now what is the largest one-to-one mentor organization in a single county in the state. So, I feel really proud about what we figured out as an organization. We're looking to share that out with other people who are looking to learn from it. And we're looking to continue to have a growth mindset of our own and learn from others as we grow. So I don't see another organization doing it exactly the same, but it's always evolving. And I think we try to accommodate around the changes of the times in the season as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know there's a lot of different programs out there. So finding the right program for the right kiddo is critical. Kelly, can you share a powerful or inspiring story? No names are needed for this. From one of the, mentorship pairings that you've seen, whether yours or someone else's?
Could share all day long. How long you want to sit here? I mean, just again, listening to Sarah and her talking about the values that we have, and trust is one. Again, there was a situation where mom wasn't answering the phone from the principal when he was calling, but I called mom. Mom answered right away, and we were able to get the kids' transportation situation figured out. I was able to take papers from the school and drop them off at home. Stuff like that. I mean, the trust that we build with the kids, the trust that we have with the staff, the trust from the parents or the coaches, and just showing up for the kids over and over. Again, another story, somebody had a broken pair of glasses for several weeks in a row. And I said, if it's okay, I'll take your glasses and get them fixed. And I was able to do that and then take them to their house later. And again, that's just not something that you can do as a teacher or do as a principal. And so we just filled in the gaps. And again, when you got to the door with the glasses, mom was so appreciative, and the student was just felt pretty special that I took that time. It took me 10 minutes. And honestly, when I went to the eye doctor, they donated their time and their materials because they just thought it was cool. So again, we connected the community into helping us out with that. So
Kelly, having been the site coordinator for Wooster City Schools previously, has had a lot of kids who have come through the Salvation Army system as well. A lot of unhoused students who don't have housing at a given time, and she will go out to that facility, help be a resource, connect it back to the school. One of the great things about being a staff member is that we're able to do those home visits or to take and meet a mentor and a student out in the community to be able to support that. One of the stories I remember is you just taking a student grocery shopping with you. And she had not had that experience. And you starting conversations around, well, what's your favorite cereal? Well, let me get you your favorite cereal. And the student on the way home says, well, I want to show you my favorite place now. And it ends up being an
one of the local parks. I was in places I'd never been, and I grew up here. So, but yeah, she shared with me just as I had shared with her. And that relationship is going on 5 or 6 years now. And it's not every week because life is busy for all of us. But yeah, we connect when we can, and it's great.
The student's no longer in the school system. So that's a great example of, we look to try and continue with our students regardless of where they are, if it's possible. Right. So if they're moving or going to homeschool, that happened a lot over the course of the COVID period. And it was really neat to see when kids either did return. Sometimes it was several years later we were often able to reconnect that student with the same mentor. We would reach out to them and say, oh, we hear they're coming back on this day. I remember Samira Zimmerly, who's our president of the Chamber of Commerce, gave her a call and said, your student's coming back from being homeschooled. We have, noticed that they're going to be here on this day. And Samira was there on that day. And they ran across the hallway together. I mean, crashed into each other, so excited to see each other again. And that is really the spirit behind the hopeful nature, really here with unconditional regard that we want to manifest through this mentorship organization.
No, definitely. I mean, having that seed planted and it's grown and it stays with that person, right? They have that moment of trust that they earn and yearn for, like that mentorship. It's critical. OHuddle is evolving. Let's talk about GroHuddle. What is it and what makes you so excited about it?
So I think GroHuddle is a great example of how we look to pivot and be agile with what the needs, how the needs are being identified. One of the things that we've heard often from principals and superintendents in the districts that we serve is we would really like this to be a K through 12 model. We want this to be at the elementary school. We've always started at either the middle school or at the high school because we don't want to create a drop off. It's important that once you have mentorship enacted, that carry through all the way to graduation. So if we're starting in a district that is asking for middle school service, we say, okay, but that means middle school and high school service because we can't stop mentorship once we've engaged. Our commitment is through graduation for our students. When I got the feedback from our school leadership that they wanted to see elementary-based service, we have all these students on our wait list. We currently have a wait list of 135 kids who are waiting for a mentor, and that's at the secondary level. And so what we didn't want to do was to cannibalize the number of adult mentors that we have coming in during the school day to grow and open up new school buildings. And so we looked to be creative around that. And that was actually one of our board members, Matt Barris, came up with the idea of us using high leadership, well-vetted, trained, and interviewed high school students at the junior and senior level to be supervised and to become mentors to our very lower elementary school students. Those students then come up through the pike already having permission and being able to be received by an adult mentor when the high school student graduates and when they transition into the middle school. And so it's a really lovely pipeline that we're able to then have kind of a feedback loop. Some of our students this year who were GroHuddle mentors had actually been mentored themselves. And so that was really neat. They were mentees turning into mentors. And, we love the idea that mentorship is good for us.
Oh, yeah. It's funny to really know and understand something. It's one thing to experience it, and it's another thing to teach it. I think it's definitely critical. Let's say we had a crystal ball here. We could see exactly what OHuddle like in 5 years. Can you paint me that picture?
I can't because they're just things pop up, and I know that's what it looks like to me as a staff member. And Sarah's probably been working diligently behind the scenes with her administrations and everything. But when you were talking about GroHuddle for the younger kids, I was just thinking about some students that just recently were gifted cars that they also had to apply for, or gifted computers to go to college. We have kids that are going on to higher education, going out into the workforce, and we're helping them get there. So again, it's just the spokes of the wheel just keep getting farther and farther out and reaching. So I really don't even have a clue what we could be doing in 5 years, but I know that and even growing, like Sarah's asked us as a staff, do you think we're growing too fast, growing too much? Like, how do we go deeper with what we have versus just getting bigger in numbers? And so really fostering what has been created. And the staff that we have here is, we take it all very personal. Like it's like our school is our site, and these are our kids, and these are our mentors, and honestly, I have a story. I could tell 100, but I went into a choir concert to see a student, and the lady next to me, and I said, "Oh, are you here to watch your son or daughter?" She's like, "I'm here to watch my mentee." She said, "I just got paired last week. This is her first concert," and she invited me. And I was like, 2 people sitting in this room, like here to support kids. And it was like, wow, this is a big deal. And big deals are going to happen 5 years from now, but I personally don't know what they look like.
I think we have a strategic plan. We've got a fantastic board that, we are really intentional around how we grow and what that timeline looks like. GroHuddle, growing out to each of the elementary schools is something that we are doing very slowly. And so I would say 5 years from now, the likelihood is that in most districts that we serve, that we're a K through 12 model. We also have an arm of the organization called GroHuddle, and this is where we are taking the learnings of OHuddle and teaching other organizations to be able to launch their own sites that become their own. It's not specifically an OHuddle site, but it's something that they can self-manage and run over time. So that's something that's very much in its infancy that we're walking towards. But Kelly's right. We look very much at the root ball as much as we do the branches, and we never want the branches to exceed the size of the roots because we grow slowly with the intention that we are never going to grow in a shallow way. That is our priority as we are walking towards the future, as well as we've had a lot of organizations that have said, grow outside of Wayne County, but this is such deep service that our intention is to make sure that we can't do that until we can do it very well. And for that reason, I think it is with this idea, to Kelly's point, that we look for opportunities and we always leave room for God too. What opportunities does God want to put our way? I think the Cars for Kids is an example of that, where somebody said, I have this found resource. What can we do with it? How can we get creative? I think the neighborhood huddle is another good example of that. Is Frankie Romick, who's our neighbor over here, said, we have Android tablets. We'd love to give you several hundred of them. How could you use them well? And instead of just making it a mass distribution, we use that as an opportunity for kids to go practice the developmental assets at 40 different stations, 40 different businesses here in Wayne County. That gets them connected to somebody who is identified as a safe space. Oftentimes, those business people are trauma training and poverty training their staff members at our request, and it becomes a skill set that they're practicing in real places to generalize those skills. When kids hit all 40 of those assets and 40 stops, some of them they can do virtually, they get their own Android tablet. And so that started with, we have this, how can kids use it well? And we try to create programming around some of those found resources. So definitely looking for people who want to leverage their gifts, their resources, their talent, and we use that to guide how the organization grows as well.
Growing out into the community as well. Like we had a field trip that we do some stuff. We mentioned God, but obviously that doesn't happen during the school day. So, but during our field trip time, we can reach out with a little bit more of that message. And we had some community members volunteer and donate senior pictures, which again was something that's really expensive. That's a major expense for a lot of kids going into their senior year, and that was able to be fostered through some volunteer and just some people stepping in and donating. And again, it was like, how can we make this work where we can get the most kids to utilize it without stretching our volunteers and stretching? And so we had one central place, and several students took advantage of that.
We've grown a lot this past year in our service coordination of, now that we have so many kids, how do we take the resources for Christmas, for Thanksgiving? How do we create some additional system around that? And so Erin Downs, who's been with the organization since we started, is our service coordination manager. And she's been a big part of marrying our field trips to things like Kelly mentioned, senior photos. We have haircuts happening.
Sports physicals.
Yeah. We have, kids who can create Christmas presents for their family members. We did this past year, an opportunity for, our kids to be able to get their school supplies as they're returning to school.
Employment. Yeah.
We were doing mock interviews with our board members, and the kids came away with a resume. And one of the students, we were eating at McDonald's, and they are fantastic supporters of OHuddle. And the manager, Jeffrey, was there, and I came over and I said, this girl has actually submitted an application for this McDonald's. It's within walking distance for her. He said, well, that's great. Let's sit down and do an interview. And he hired her. And so I think sometimes we have those warm handoffs in our history. If you think back to who gave you your first job, was it a parent who said you should go over here and get connected to this? And not every kid has that warm handoff. And so we look to be that in as many ways as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously all this stuff doesn't happen without a great team. Sarah, let me give you the floor here. Why don't you talk about your team that you have?
I've never worked with a group like this, if I'm going to be honest. We are 22 women. It's not designed to solely be a group of women in leadership, but I think, what's really unusual is that we are women of a similar walk of life. Most of us have kids that are in the school district. A lot of the staff members I have kids in the school district that they are serving in, so they have an intimate knowledge of the school staffing and how the system works and what the calendar is. And they're really passionate about being change agents in that district. They want that benefit for their student, for their children at home. They want to be a change agent that has a ripple effect beyond just their own household, and to make a difference for kids who, really need them in that district. And so We do not have drama on our team. We don't have people who, misunderstand things intentionally. We don't have a ton of conflict. I think when there is conflict, we have such crucial conversations and open conversations to seek to understand. And it is the biggest breath of fresh air, because I think when you work in nonprofit, when you work in a variety of different levels, those things just naturally come. But we've been really protective over the caliber of leader that we have come and work with us. The majority of our staff members have had other experiences. Kelly is a business owner, and we have had pediatric nurses and army sergeants and principals and financial officers, and they come and work and dedicate their talents to OHuddle, oftentimes taking a pay cut because they believe so significantly in the mission. We really braid together those talents to be a little bit of magic, I would say. I think I feel so proud of again, the caliber of people we have working for OHuddle, because they represent the brand and the idea of mentorship so well that I think it's persisted significantly because of that talent.
For sure. It's good to have a kind of diverse background. It's like a little family. Right?
Absolutely. We have each other's back, and it's pretty cool to see the text feed of all of the team and how we're encouraging each other. When a surgery comes up, we know who's dropping off the meals. We know how to encourage somebody when there's something that they're going through, or how to celebrate it. It's really something to behold a group of people who are here to celebrate each other.
For sure. So, Kelly, what would you say to someone who wants to support OHuddle, whether through mentoring, volunteering, or sponsoring?
I would say there's a place and a level for every single person. If you think that you're overcommitted and don't have time, there's a small piece that you can do. There's no donation or no idea that's not going to be at least entertained. And again, it's just I think we are an agency that meets people where they are. If that's a mentor who has to work out of town or can only do every other week or needs to go online because they're traveling, or I don't know about the financial part, that's Sarah's wheelhouse. But as far as we'd love to sponsor, like we'll find a way to make something work, and it might be an in-kind donation of food, or again, we're going to the zoo, or we have therapy dogs, so we have all kinds of opportunities for lots of people to get involved, if it be with a student or at the board level or financially.
I think it's a hard time to be a nonprofit right now, both from a human capital standpoint. We know that post-COVID, the volunteerism is down sometimes up to 20% in lots of places. We know too that there are lots of federal and state funding cuts at the level that impacts social service right now. We ourselves have experienced at least 2 major state award and 1 federal award. The federal award is a $200,000 deficit that we find ourselves in because of federal funding that's being cut through the AmeriCorps program at the federal level. And so, again, I mentioned that you don't go into nonprofit if you're not an optimist. We rally and we trudge forward and we show resilience. But if you are considering being a supporter in some way, this is definitely the season to do it. This is the time. We've never really sounded the call in 10 years, but I would say we're sounding the call of this is your time that we need help.
Definitely time to rally the troops, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we have someone listening that wants to start something bold, but is scared to take the first step. What advice would you give them?
I think if somebody wants to do something bold, I'm somebody who's actually pretty conservative in a lot of ways. As much as sometimes you close your eyes and jump, I would actually say first do your research. I would say look at the likelihoods and the opportunities, and look at the climate and make decisions about if this is something that you're truly passionate about, what is one small thing that you can do towards it, and then engage micro opportunities to do a slow build. I think OHuddle, although we have been bold and we have grown quickly, it really started with a prayer. We're big believers in putting to prayer things that feel like they're big and bold and scary, and look for doors that are opening, look for like-minded people who want to help. But the thing about OHuddle is that we really only have lovely people that are here for the right reasons. You don't come as a volunteer for the glory or for the power or for the money, obviously. You're coming to try and make a difference. So looking for those like-minded people to help you to do a slow walk towards the thing that feels big and intimidating is definitely advice that I would lean on.
All right, so last question here. Where can people learn more, follow, and get involved with OHuddle?
OHuddle.org is where you'll find everything that you need. So whether you're going to be a volunteer or whether you just want to learn more about the impact of mentorship. One of the things that we have coming up that's open to the public on the 25th of August, which is a Monday, at 6 p.m., we're doing a ribbon cutting of the augmented reality mural that we've had student artists design and that the College of Wooster Amory team coded into an augmented reality artwork that when you hover your phone over the mural, it comes to life through your phone and animates. So we would love to have you come down at 6 o'clock on the 25th of August to come and help us celebrate that and to see it for the first time in augmented reality. We also are partnering with the Lyric Theater, another really important nonprofit that we're big fans of, and we'll be showing the movie Soul immediately after the ribbon cutting and giving away free tickets for the first people who show up and want to see that. Little kids coming and seeing the ribbon cutting can hang on until they come and see the movie if you'd like to come and join us at 6 o'clock on the 25th of August.
Yeah, we just went to the theater down there. It's pretty neat.
It's fantastic. And they also have a great heartbeat for service to the community and just creating something that hasn't been that can really advance the mission of us being a creative and supported and rich culture here in Wayne County.
Awesome. Well, thank you, both you ladies, for being on the show. If anyone else needs any additional contact information, you're welcome to reach out to myself, Seth Screamo, at 330-221-1. Have a great day.